Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Common Scams and Fraud. In our increasingly connected and digital landscape, scams have become more common and harder to spot than ever. That's why understanding them is more important than ever, so you can protect yourself and your family. We're incredibly fortunate to have with us today a true expert in his field, Kersten, an outreach specialist for the Bureau of Consumer Protection within the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, or DATCP. The Bureau of Consumer Protection is Wisconsin's lead agency that provides information and education, mediates complaints, investigates cases, and takes enforcement actions to fight fraudulent and deceptive practices. Jeff's extensive background, including over 12 years as a police officer and his prior role as a consumer protection investigator, gives him unique insights into the tactics scammers use. Today, Jeff will arm us with the details of common scams, reveal the key warning signs to watch out for, and crucially, tell us exactly what to do if you or someone you know falls victim to a scam or fraud. This webinar will be recorded so you can reference it or share it later. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or ask them in the chat. And now please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to Kersten.
All right, thanks so much for joining me today. Just in case the IT issues are on my end, I'm just going to kill my video here in a second, but hopefully we have some repeat customers here from a few months ago. Back in May, you might have heard me speak about identity theft. And today is kind of a nice follow-up to that presentation. You know, all these scammers that want to steal our money and steal our personal information and you know, what I hope to give you today are some red flags to look out for. And my hope is in the future, if you see one of these red flags, you know, you can just hang up the phone, walk away from the computer, don't click that link, don't call that phone number back, and hopefully not lose money to these scammers. So I do have a little presentation here that I'm going to just share my screen quick. Let's make sure I shared the correct screen.
All right. That looks good.
All right, looks good. All right, perfect. So, unfortunately, these scammers are making money scamming us. They're making billions of dollars that gets reported to the federal government every year. I mean, it makes sense, right? If the criminals weren't making money off of us, they probably would have given up trying to scam us years ago. Unfortunately, there's more stats out there that say only 30% or less of victims actually come forward and report it, which puts some estimates as high as $1 trillion of how much scammers are making with these endeavors. So, you know, we urge victims, come forward, report it to us, report it to law enforcement, give us a chance to look into what's going on, give us a chance to try to get that money back. You know, even if we're not successful, you know, we learn what scams are out there and what twists on those scams are working, and that might help out somebody else not fall victim to that same scam. A lot of people find this slide interesting, that younger folks fall victim to scams at twice the rate of some of our seniors. You know, I don't know if that's just younger individuals are more online, more willing to click a link in an email or a text message or call a number back. Now, you know, are more on social media, more willing to share on social media, you know, maybe a combination of all of that together. Now, for the younger individuals, the only good news is that on average per scam, they don't lose as much money. Somebody might not have as much money when they're 20. It's no less devastating for that victim. You know, if it's only 50 bucks and that cleans out the checking account, and now that individual needs gas, food, groceries, the rent is due, the car payment's due, and the money is gone, of course, that's a bad day. But as we move through life, hopefully we get a chance to accumulate some wealth. Well, all that does is just put more wealth at risk to these scammers. These scammers are going to try to get as much money as they can out of each individual victim, and then they just simply move on to the next victim, and again, try to get as much money out of that next victim as possible. I know this number right here says an average of 1650 for our older individuals, older victims, but that's just an average. I'll share some stories with you today of victims I've talked to that have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars to some of these scams, and honestly, they're life savings, and that money is gone, and it's very difficult to recover that money. How do these individuals scam us? I mean, every which way you can imagine. They call us, they email us, they text us, they pay for ads to pop up on our computer screens. They pay for ads to pop up on social media feeds. I mean, they might even pay for postage. Just because it shows up in the mailbox in paper form doesn't automatically mean that you can trust it. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of text message scams lately. Yeah. Did everybody remember to pay your Illinois tolls a few months ago? Or, of course, we get the text message that we're trying to deliver your package, but we have incomplete address information. Or I think there was one going around a few weeks ago that you have unpaid traffic violations, and if you don't take action now, they're going to suspend a driver's license. I've almost gotten to a point where I treat most of, or if not all of these emails and text messages that I get, I treat them like they're scams. Even the real ones. Some email or text might tip me off that something's going on, but I'm never going to trust those links. I'm never going to call those phone numbers back. So the text message where they're trying to deliver my package and I have incomplete address information, I ignore that message. If I really ordered something online over the last few days, I go back to where I ordered it from. I log into that account. I go to my order history. That's where you find the real information. It's a few more clicks to get there, but at least then I know I'm dealing with the real company or organization that I'm trying to get that information from. If you click on the link, you might find yourself just handing money over to the criminals. I actually know somebody personally who fell victim to the Illinois scam text message, Illinois toll text message that we all got a few months ago. My friend had just driven down to Chicago to fly out on vacation at O'Hare Airport. And it was the second day of her vacation, and she got a text message that she had to pay her tolls. In that moment, it made sense to her. She had just driven through Illinois just a couple days earlier. That's when we're most susceptible to these things happening, is when just by chance there's something going on in our personal lives that makes that message make sense. So she clicked on the link. She thought she was paying $50 in tolls. She put her debit card information in, her, a debit card, not a credit card. So this is actually her money, and thought again she was paying $50 in tolls, and immediately got an online banking notification of a pending $587 charge. Because this has nothing to do with paying real tolls. This is just criminals trying to get debit card information and then try to get as much money as possible per victim. Now, she was able to contact her bank right away and put a stop to it, but the money was tied up with this pending transaction. It didn't get straightened out for a few weeks. She's on vacation, she's out of state, the debit card's now canceled. All that money that was in the checkbook that she wanted to use on vacation is not available. It just messed up a lot, just from clicking on a link in a fake text message. You might see things like this pop up on social media feeds. Most of it too good to be true. There's no such thing as sitting at home and filling out surveys and winning $500 and $1,000 gift cards. Only if it was that simple, right? Probably best to not get investing advice from somebody that you're talking to on social media. We'll talk more about that later. Um, Online shopping. We have a whole separate online shopping presentation, and you really have to be careful about the advertisements that you see on social media. There are a lot of fake websites out there. They look like real online retailers. They might be selling something that you're interested in at maybe a too good to be true price. And a lot of people try to buy things from these unknown websites. And they never get what they bought and they lose money. And again, we have a whole separate presentation where we try to navigate that whole world when it comes to online shopping. But one of the ways they certainly scam us a lot is through the phone. So let's talk a little bit about phone calls. Does everybody understand that you cannot trust caller ID? They can make your caller ID say whatever they want. And every one of those manipulations is just a trick to get you to answer the phone. If you kind of look at it from their standpoint, step number one to get you to fall for a scam, well, they need to get you on the line. If you don't answer, it's kind of hard to fall for the scam, right? Which is why I'm about to say, and I know this sounds really simple, but if you don't recognize the number, even if it looks local, just ignore it. Just hit decline or just let it go to voicemail on its own. Uh, you can always check voicemail later to see if that was something legitimate. A lot of times they don't even leave messages, and then you know for sure there was nothing legitimate about that phone call. Now that works in a perfect world, right? But sometimes we're waiting for that important phone call from, like a doctor's office or who knows where, and we don't know what number they're going to call us from, and we don't want to miss the real call. So sometimes we're stuck, and you have to answer the line. If you answer and it happens to be a scam phone call, it's not the end of the world. It's just as soon as you figure out it's a scam, my advice, don't say anything else. Don't push any buttons on your phone. Don't engage with these individuals at all. Just immediately hang up without saying another word. It's okay to be rude and just hang up the phone. But they're going to try to get you to talk. They want you to talk, and for a number of different reasons. If they can get you to engage with them, they think it's just a matter of time before they can talk you into something. So, we certainly don't want to do that. They might also try to get you to say a word. They might say, can you hear me okay? And before you know it, you just said yes. And they record your voice saying yes. Maybe then they call up the credit union and they pretend to be you as a customer and they have a recording of you saying yes or something else. I think it's good advice to train ourselves to not say yes, but now we have this artificial intelligence, these computers that can analyze somebody's voice and steal that voice. I think this is just more evidence that you don't want to talk to these scammers on the phone. They might use a computer to analyze your voice, and now they call up the credit union, and it's not just the word yes. Now they can make your voice say whatever they want. And they hope that, the bank or the credit union doesn't bother to ask those password questions today to make sure that you are who you say you are. That's a good thing. We want the bank and the credit union to always ask us those password questions and verify that it is actually you calling in, and not just a criminal using artificial intelligence to steal your voice. Um, and that's just the beginning of AI. They can also use AI to make deep fake videos, to craft those fake websites that we were talking about earlier that look like real online retailers, uh, to spear phishing email attacks. There's so many things that AI can now be used by the criminals in order to scam us. Now we move on to deceptive payment methods. There's so many ways that criminals from the other side of the world can now get their hands on your money. I was thinking about this not that long ago, and if somebody, I don't know, 30, 40, certainly 50 years ago or more, was going to try to steal money from you, they would literally have to drive to where you live or show up almost in person to steal that money. But nowadays, there's so many ways we can turn our money into something electronic that then can be transferred around the world, and it's very difficult to track and get that money back. So a few of those electronic options that I just mentioned are on the screen here. So number one on the list, cryptocurrency. A lot of people, you hear about Bitcoin and all this different cryptocurrency in the news. These cryptocurrency kiosks, you see a picture of one on the screen there that says Bitcoin on the front of it. These things are all over the place. If you just do a quick Google search of Bitcoin ATM near me, I almost guarantee that you're within a mile or two of one of these machines. You find them at gas stations and grocery stores and pharmacies and smoke and vape shops and just all kinds of small businesses. They're all over the place. So criminals will talk victims into going to the bank, pulling out money, driving to one of these machines, feeding money into that machine. And if the victim does that, they just bought Bitcoin. A receipt then prints off and it might have a QR code on it or some numbers and letters. They'll get talked into either texting a picture of that QR code out to somebody or just reading the numbers and letters to somebody over the phone. And the moment that the victim does that, that money or that Bitcoin is transferred out of one person's wallet into another wallet. And it becomes very, very difficult for law enforcement or us to track that money and get that money back. Hold the thought here on Bitcoin. I'm going to come back to that one here in just a second. Next on the list is gift cards. Has anybody been told to kind of watch out for gift cards or, don't get talked into buying gift cards? I see some heads nodding on the screen. So there's nothing wrong with gift cards as long as you buy a gift card to give one to somebody else as a gift. That's what they're for. And great. If you're the recipient of a gift card, great. Go use it. I have one in my wallet right now for Bass Pro Shops, and I can't wait to go buy some more fishing stuff. But gift cards, that just turns your money into an electronic form of money. And now the victim will get talked into snapping a picture of the back of that gift card and texting it or emailing it out. And then the criminal will immediately transfer the money off that gift card onto another one. And then they transfer it to another one, another one, another one. And very quickly that money kind of disappears and becomes very hard to track. Okay, so here's the easiest way to kind of remember all of this stuff. Everybody I believe I'm talking to right now, I can't see everybody on the screen, but I believe we're all adults. You can do what you want with your money. If you've done your research and you want to buy cryptocurrency or Bitcoin for some reason, well, that's your business. If you want to buy a gift card and give it to somebody else as a gift, again, that's your business. But here's what you need to look out for. Don't let someone else tell you you need to buy this stuff. Someone else telling you to buy crypto or buy a gift card for whatever reason, almost 100% that is a scam. And I don't really hand out investing advice, but I will hand out one little piece of investing advice right now. Let's just pretend for a second somebody on the call was thinking about getting involved in crypto. You never would put a dollar bill into one of the machines that I have a picture of on the screen right now. These machines, they take 30% right off the top. I'm no investing expert, but if I'm already 30% in the hole with my investment, that doesn't sound like a good deal to me. So never get talked into putting money into these machines. And then they'll still talk people into mailing cash through the mail, wiring money through legitimate services like Western Union or MoneyGram. And I'm even hearing more and more stories about people showing up in person to pick up the money. Uh, Now, whether that's actually the criminal standing at somebody's front door to pick up the money, or they just hired a courier service or somebody else, but that's a whole different level of scary. If someone's showing up in person to pick up money, I'm no longer a police officer, but I think that's a pretty easy justification for a 911 call if a stranger is at your front door asking for money. All right, let's talk about some actual scams that you might run into. There is a lot of psychology that these criminals use to scam us. And I think we as adults are more easily manipulated than we care to admit. And the criminals, they know how to manipulate us, and they've honed their techniques over the years, quite honestly. Think of it like this. Have you ever sat in on one of those like timeshare sales presentations? Many people have been in those meetings before, and we all kind of laugh and chuckle because we know what's coming. It's going to be this meeting I get trapped in, and the salespeople, they're not going to take no for an answer, and they're going to use these hard sell techniques, and well, there's a reason why salespeople do that sometimes, because it works. Sometimes salespeople can make us buy stuff we don't even really want to buy. And then 2 or 3 days later, people are many times like, oh my goodness, what did I do? How do I get out of this contract? Well, when I talk to scam victims, that's almost the exact same thing I hear. 2 or 3 days later, oh my goodness, what did I do? How do I fix this? I can't believe I got talked into doing that. I know better. But in the moment, the criminals are so good at manipulating us and making us think there's only one way to fix whatever's going on. One of their favorite tactics to do that is to scare us. They can get us to panic about a situation. We become more easily to manipulate. Well, when you pretend to be from the government, like you see on the screen, there's just lots of scary things that you can say to get somebody to panic. You owe back taxes, and if you don't pay them right now, they're going to send the police to your house and arrest you. Or you've reached your Medicare benefit limit for the year, and if you don't take action now, you're going to lose benefits. Uh, your social security number has been suspended, and again, you're going to lose benefits or something if you don't take action now, or just simply you have a warrant for your arrest. They get somebody to panic, and before you know it, they're on the way to the bank and they're pulling out money or they're buying gift cards. I know it seems like a big stretch to go from A to B, that you're just going to get a phone call and all of a sudden you're buying gift cards or pulling money out of the bank, but it really is that quick. And all of a sudden, it just seems like that's the only way to fix whatever's going on. I just talked to a lady up in northern Wisconsin literally 2 weeks ago, and she has given me permission to share her story because she doesn't want someone else to fall victim to the same scam. Over a course of about 6 months, she thought she was talking to somebody at the government. Uh, uh, she had a pop-up window on her computer that said her computer's infected with a virus. We're going to talk about that particular scam here in just a little bit, but uh, she thought she was talking to some federal law enforcement and the FBI, and that they recruited her to help her catch the bad guys, and that all of her money was at risk. It's a very elaborate scam, and she was convinced she was working with the good guys, and they were going to catch these criminals. And before it was said and done, she went and cashed in her 401k for $170,000 and sent it where the criminals wanted her to send the money, because she thought the FBI was going to be waiting at the other end and they were going to use her money as bait money to catch the criminals. And it wasn't until it was said and done that she realized the money was going right to the criminals and there was no law enforcement there waiting for them, and she ended up losing everything. Um, just one example of how elaborate some of these scams can get. Another scam that you might run into is a simple scam. It's a utility imposter scam. They'll pretend to be the power company or the internet service provider, or gas and electric, something like that. And they'll call you up and they'll put the name of that company on your caller ID. It'll say MG&E or Alliant Energy or We Energies or you name it. If you answer, of course, that's who they say they're with, and then they'll tell you you're behind on your bill. Now all of a sudden your head is spinning a little bit. Hey, wait a minute. I thought I paid last month. What's going on? And in that moment of, kind of wondering what's going on, they tell you, we've got a crew in the way to your house right now to turn your power off. I need you to pay right now over the phone. I might be able to stop them. That's a red flag to look out for. Urgent. Take action now or something bad's going to happen. That's not how real companies do business. If you're ever being forced to make a decision quickly about something, step back from that situation, take your time. You always have plenty of time to think these things through. I talked to a lady again up in northern Wisconsin that received this exact same phone call. And she hears that there's a crew on the way to her house to turn her power off. So she walked over to the living room window and she looked outside. And you'll never guess what happened to be driving down her street in that moment. A power truck happened by pure chance to be driving down her street. Now put yourself in her shoes just for a second. That's real panic. Oh my goodness, they're here. They're going to turn my power off. Can you imagine getting a phone call like that? What was it, a few weeks ago here in the Madison area? We had, the 90-degree temperatures, or, maybe it's the middle of winter and it's, a polar vortex is coming through, and all of a sudden you think you're going to lose heat or air conditioning. That's real panic. And she tried to pay over the phone. She gave her credit card number and she ended up losing $5,000 that day. Now, $5,000, I mean, that has that's more than her power bill, I guarantee it, because this has nothing to do with her real power bill. Again, this is just criminals getting payment card info and then trying to use it to get as much money as possible. You get a phone call like this, just hang up. Think of it like this. What if it was really the power company calling up and you did miss last month's bill? It, just hang up. There's no ramifications or negative ramifications for hanging up on a real business. You can always hang up the phone. When you're on the receiving end of a phone call, you don't know who that is. We talked about this earlier. You can't trust caller ID. Can't trust what the voice is saying. Does a criminal just lie? And when you figure in artificial intelligence, you can't even trust when you recognize the voice on the other end of the line. On the receiving end of a phone call, you don't know who that is. So just hang up. But now let's be honest. I just heard I'm behind on my bill. I'm going to want to get to the bottom of what's going on. So let's say I want to call the power company back. Do I call the number back that just showed up on caller ID? No, don't do that. What if I just Google the name of the power company and I take the first number that pops up on the screen? Be careful with that as well. Criminals are good at getting their phone numbers mixed in to those real search results. Is there somewhere I can go where I know I can find the real phone number for the power company? And I bet most of you are thinking right now, your bill. And I like that. I like bills because they always have phone numbers on them. And those phone numbers I know I can trust. There's also phone numbers on your credit card statements and your bank statements and the credit union paperwork and every plastic card in your wallet. There's always a phone number on the backside. Those are the phone numbers you know you can trust. So you go to your bill, you find the real phone number, and then you use your phone to call them back. And the first thing I would say is, hey, I just got a phone call, something, I'm behind on my bill, what's going on? And, they'll say, well, let's look up your account, and then you'll find out, is there really something going on? Or was that just a scam phone call and you were right to hang up on them? But you have to be the one to call the number back, call the real number back. You might get a pop-up window on your computer screen. I mentioned this one earlier. If computer's infected with a virus, do not turn it off. Call this 1-800 number. You already heard one way that this scam can go, or maybe they pretend to be federal law enforcement and you get recruited to help catch the criminals. Uh, there's so many ways this scam can go. And these criminals, they're truly computer experts. And one of the more popular ways this scam can go is they want to get into your computer. They want to remote in. And it's very, very easy for them to do that. If you call these numbers back, you're going to get somebody who's very friendly on the phone, and they're going to sound like the IT professional that can help you out with your computer problems today. They might charge you thousands of dollars to install antivirus protection on your computer. All of that is a scam. Or they might have you just open up a web browser, type some numbers into the address line, and before you know it, somebody else is moving that mouse pointer around on your computer screen. And that means that a stranger is in your computer. Never let a stranger into your computer. Once they're in, it's so easy for them to manipulate this situation. I talked to another victim up in Crivets, Wisconsin, and all the stories I share, of course, my victims gave me permission to share these stories. And her and her husband got a pop-up window like this on on their computer. They couldn't figure out how to get rid of it, so they end up calling the number. Before it was said and done, they talked her into going to the bank and pulling out $17,000. And it's pretty tricky. Here's what they did. So picture, she's on the phone with the bad guys and she's staring at her computer screen and she lets them into her computer. So they start pulling stuff up on the computer screen, oh my goodness, your computer's infected with this virus, and look at this, and look at this, and they're just getting her all worked up. And then they tell her, oh no, the criminals are in your computer, and you do online banking on your computer. The criminals are going to steal all your money, and this could happen at a moment's notice. We need to get down to the credit union, and we need to secure your money before the criminals get to it. So they get her to panic and think that she's gonna have all of her money stolen at a moment's notice, and she needs to go get this money out of the credit union right away. Now, of course, they tell her, don't tell your credit union what you're doing. Your credit union will tell you the money's fine, but it's not. The criminals are in your computer and they could steal it at any moment. So she panics, goes down, pulls out $17,000. And this is where the story takes a little bit of a crazy turn. Now they have her drive down the street to a gas station. And what do you think was inside that gas station? One of those cryptocurrency ATMs that we talked about earlier. And they tell her, okay, ma'am, here's what we're going to do. We're going to just temporarily move your money into this other account. It's completely safe to do this. It's going to keep your money safe until we can figure out what's going on with your computer. So she feeds $17,000 into this machine. It prints off a receipt. Then, of course, they just tell her, okay, ma'am, I just need that information for my records. I'll add that to your case file. So she reads it to them over the phone and click, they hang up on her. Because as soon as they have that information that she reads off the receipt, they don't need her anymore. They hang up on her. They've got her $17,000. She just lost everything. And it all started with a pop-up window on her computer. Never call these numbers back, please. If you get these windows on your computer and you can't figure out how to get rid of them, usually what works is Control Alt Delete and just restart your computer. But there are times I've heard that doesn't work. Here's what always works. Just hold the power button down on your computer for a full 10 seconds. Just push it in, just keep holding that power button down. It's called doing a hard reboot. Your computer will completely shut down no matter what's going on. Wait a few minutes, hit that button again, start it up fresh, and all of those windows will be gone. If you've ever seen someone else moving that mouse pointer around on your screen and you don't know who that is, and now you're kind of wondering what was going on, we recommend disconnecting from the internet. Get that computer to a trusted computer repair place, preferably local. Get it scanned, because who knows what that individual did once they were in your computer. Romance relationship sweetheart scams. This is actually one of the most popular scams in the US right now. I believe the FBI says there is more money lost to romance scams than all other scams put together. And that's a big statement because there are a lot of other scams out there. These can start so many different ways. You might get a random text message from somebody or like a Facebook Messenger type communication, and it says, "Hey, how are you?" or "We still on for dinner tonight?" Something like that, just random. If you ever respond to that, somebody will just strike up a conversation with you, and before you know it, you've been talking to somebody for weeks or months, and you think this is a real person. You think you're talking to a real person online, maybe in a relationship with this individual. And when you're talking to people online, you just don't know who you're talking to. There are criminals out there that they want to talk to you. They'll tell you everything you want to hear. Often their stories are they have a lot of money, but they just don't have access to it right now. It's tied up in a lawsuit or a divorce, and they just, don't have anything right now, but they kind of dangle that carrot that when their money shows up, then they're gonna, show up here and sweep you off your feet, and of course that's never gonna happen. Some red flags that somebody could be tied up in a romance scam. The other party has professed that they love you, but they've never met you face to face. They have all these excuses. They're in the military, they're serving overseas. That's a popular one. They're a citizen of another country. There's just visa issues right now. They can't visit. You're in Wisconsin, they're in some other state. It's too far to drive. They're full of excuses on why they've never met you face to face. But then they start asking for money. And if the victim sends a little bit of money, it's not the end of the scam. Honestly, that's just the beginning. And some of these scams, they can go on for weeks and months and even years, and they'll just continue to ask for more money, come up with new excuses on why somebody needs to send them more money. Uh, Lots of different types of romance scams. We're going to talk another hold the thought on romance scams. We're gonna come back to that here in just a second, but watch out for those red flags. Another phone call you might get, you won the lottery, or you won Publishers Clearinghouse, or a sweepstakes. Now, this isn't a scary phone call, right? This is an exciting phone call. Who hasn't daydreamed what this day would be like? You won $10.8 million in your choice of three different cars, and they're going to be here tomorrow with a giant check and balloons and a film crew, and it's happening. Well, we as human beings, when we're excited about something, we tend to make the same bad decisions as when we're scared or panicked about a situation. So this type of scam also works. You have to remember that you can't win a sweepstakes that you never entered. It's illegal for US citizens to play foreign lotteries, even if you wanted to, so you can't do that either. But here's the big one to look out for. If you actually win stuff in life, and yes, people win stuff sometimes. They hit the jackpot at a casino, somebody wins the new car, there's drawings for stuff. If you ever win something for real, you never have to pay out of pocket to get to your winnings. Might you be on the hook for taxes or something? Sure. You know what? Take my taxes out of my winnings and just give me what's left over. But if you tell me I have to pay to get to my cash winnings, well, that's a scam, and that person is just trying to steal your money. You might get a phone call of a family member that's in distress. I know they call this the grandparent scam, but they could impersonate nieces or nephews or cousins or you name it. And now when you figure in artificial intelligence, that makes this scam even more scary. You might get a phone call and you might recognize the voice of a family member or a friend at the other end of the line. And they're crying on the phone. They've been involved in a car crash and they're in so much trouble. And, don't tell anybody else what's going on. And they need help and they need money. And you recognize their voice. Now, that's a scary phone call to receive. But that could be a fake phone call. That could be a criminal just impersonating a friend or a family member just because they saw a video online that your friend or family member posted and they used AI to steal the voice. And they figured out who you were in relation to that person and they call you up and they pretend to be them. When you're on the receiving end of a phone call, I can't stress this enough. You don't know who that is. Now, I'm not saying every one of your phone calls from family and friends are fake and you should just hang up on them. I mean, unless you want to, then use me as an excuse. But uh, all I can say is this, even if you think you're talking to family and friends and all of a sudden the conversation turns towards money and you're getting talked into going to the bank and pulling out money or buying gift cards or buying something with your money, just take a second, pump the brakes. That might not be a friend or a family member. So, how do you get to the bottom of if this is a real phone call or not? You have to make your own phone calls. You have to call the family member back that's supposedly in distress. Call the parents of the family member back that's supposedly in distress. Call them back at the phone numbers that you already have programmed for them in your phone. You have to ask lots of questions over the phone, questions that only the real friend or family member would know the answer to. We actually recommend setting up a family password. This is just an easy thing that you can do with the immediate family members. Come up with a secret password. And in the future, if you ever get a phone call and just for a second you think it's real, you know what? Ask for the family password. If you're talking to a real family member, well, they're going to know the password. And if you're talking to a criminal and you say, "What's the family password?" the next thing you probably are going to hear is click because there's no way they're going to guess what word is the family password. And here's my pro tip for you. Later this afternoon, what if you were to get this phone call? I still recommend you ask for the family password. The criminal doesn't know that you haven't set one up yet. And if the next thing you hear is click, well, then you know that that was just a criminal and that there was nothing legitimate about that phone call. You might get a phone call from Susie wanting to sell you auto warranty, extended car coverage. I don't know why it's always Susie, but that's the phone call that I get on my phone. Uh, all of this is fake. These criminals will tell you anything you want to hear in order to offer you coverage on your vehicle. And I'm here to tell you that when your vehicle really breaks down and you really need help with fixing your vehicle, none of these policies ever pay out. There's so much fine print on these policies that all they ever do is take money in and they never pay out on these claims. But this is the type of quote unquote criminal that's kind of trying to run like what sounds like a real business or offer a real service. And because they do that, it makes it easier for agencies like mine to track them down because they kind of pretend to be a real business. We actually have the most success getting money back for scam victims of this scam than the other ones. But we need those victims to come forward and report it to us. And what you see on the screen there, that's actually a postcard that showed up to my house. So just because it shows up in paper form in the mailbox doesn't necessarily mean that you can trust it. You might get phone calls, support the police, fire, EMS, those types of charity phone calls. Well, charities are nonprofit. They're allowed to call you up and they can ask for money. And even though it's against the law, there's nothing really that stops a criminal from pretending to be a charity. And they're going to call you up and they also want your money. And there's no way to tell the difference between those two calls. So my best advice for you is never, ever, ever give money over the phone when you're on the receiving end of the phone call. Everybody that I'm talking to right now, you know who you support. If you want to support a charity, that's great. Again, you know who they are. You reach out to them, not the other way around, or you might just be giving money to a criminal. This is a slide from the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions. They investigate investment scams. And the number one scam that they deal with, it's got a funny name. It's called pig butchering. It's a type of investment scam that's often associated with cryptocurrency and those romance scams that we talked about earlier. And can start a bunch of different ways, but basically two people will be talking online and somebody will have a hot tip on investing in cryptocurrency and we can get rich quick and they'll talk the victim into opening an account, depositing some money. It will very much feel like the victim is in complete control of what's going on. It'll look like that money gets invested in usually crypto. And then they'll start showing the victim documents that looks like the money is doing really well. It's doubling, it's tripling, it's quadrupling, which will entice the victim to invest more, invest more, invest more. This is the fattening of the pig stage of the scam. I think you probably know why it's called pig butchering now. That's the victim going in at the end to pull out all this money they think this investment has grown to, only then to find out that all that money was stolen immediately when those deposits were made, and the victim ends up losing everything. Just an idea of here of how much crypto is being used in scams. Really took off in 2021. I'm not here to say crypto's a scam, but there are a lot of scams related to crypto. Uh, Criminals like it for a number of different reasons. It's fairly anonymous. Money can be transferred around the world instantaneously. And because of something called the blockchain, those transactions are irreversible. So for all those reasons, the criminals like it for scams. So again, if you've done your own research and you want to buy it, that's your business. But if someone else is telling you you need to buy this stuff, almost 100%, they're just trying to steal your money. So just here to recap how to avoid being scammed. The federal government's not going to call you up over the phone. They're going to send you a letter in the mail. Urgent, take action now, or something bad's going to happen. Big red flag to look out for. Don't trust somebody that wants you to lie. This applies to a number of different scams, but if somebody is telling you to lie to the bank about why you're pulling out money, lie to a family member about what's going on, don't tell a family member something that's going on, don't tell your family you won the lottery, you don't want to ruin the surprise. They're trying to keep the victims isolated and they're telling them to lie. So, uh, whoever is telling you to lie, that's the person I don't think you should trust. Uh, you can't trust an online romance that you've never met in person. Again, this is associated with some of those pig butchering scams I just talked about. Some of these scams are pretty elaborate, and they'll actually sometimes pay actors to make video phone calls to the victims. So you might be talking to a real human being at the other end of a video call or a FaceTime, and they're being paid to tell you everything that you want to hear to put your mind at ease that this is legitimate and this is real and that you should send more money or invest more money. So even if you video chatted or FaceTimed with somebody, if you've never met them in person, you still don't really know who that is. Never give remote access to your computer. You never have to pay to claim a prize. Don't click those links in emails or text messages, just like my friend with the Illinois tolls. And I believe the recommendation now is they don't even recommend clicking the unsubscribe button at the bottom of emails. This was on the Today Show just a few weeks ago. Basically, there's just so many fake emails out there that it's not worth the risk in accidentally clicking the unsubscribe button in a fake email, and then giving your email address away. It's not worth it. So there's other strategies on cleaning up email inboxes if yours is too cluttered. Oh, you contact the charities, never get investing advice from people that you're talking to online. AI can be used to augment all these scams that we talked about. And again, do your research on the phone numbers for businesses that you're trying to reach out to. A good place to find those is on your statements and your bills and those plastic cards in your wallet. What's being done about all this? You know how your phone tells you nowadays that it's a scam phone call? This is a good thing. So whenever you see these messages pop up on your phone, for sure don't waste your time answering it. Just let it go to voicemail. Hopefully this program continues to get better and better. The Here's something that you can do. You can sign up for the do not call list. Now, this isn't going to stop the criminals from calling you. It's already against the law for the criminals to call you. But here's why I bring this up in a scam presentation. The do not call list, this is for businesses that want to call you up and sell you something. And you can opt out of those phone calls. So if you sign up for this, now when you receive a phone call from an unknown number, well, you know that's not a real business trying to sell you something because you're on the do not call list. So all those leftover numbers that you don't recognize on your caller ID, they're all just the scam phone calls. It kind of makes it easier to ignore those unknown numbers. If you're not on the do not call list, then you don't have to be, but you're going to get all the current scam phone calls you already get. And now mixed in, you're going to get phone calls from real businesses trying to sell you stuff. It's just that much harder to tell the real phone calls apart from the fake ones. The FTC wants to remind everybody that you're all consumers. Everybody listening to me right now pays for cell service, landlines, maybe both. Call up your phone company and complain about scam phone calls. Many phone companies out there have robocall blockers and different things they can put in place on your line to stop some of this stuff from coming through, but they tend to not put that stuff in place until you call up and complain. So that's something that you can do. If you have a smartphone, there's a few other options. Uh, some of our smartphones, you can download apps that'll stop some of the robocalls from coming through. Many of the newer smartphones have artificial intelligence built into them, and you can actually use AI to screen some of your incoming phone calls, which works surprisingly well. But right now, on all of our smartphones, so we've got Android on the left and Apple on the right, you can set your phone to block or silence unknown callers. So kind of hear me out. This is what this means. So if you go into the settings on your phone and you turn this on, if someone tries to call you from a phone number that you don't already have programmed into your address book, your phone probably won't even ring. It'll just go right to voicemail. Of course, that caller can always leave you a message and you can always check that later. This doesn't work for everybody. So that situation I talked about earlier, where, maybe you're waiting for an important phone call back from the doctor's office or an insurance company or something, and you don't know what number they're going to call from. If you have this turned on, you might miss the live call. So many consumers I talk to is when they're waiting for an important phone call, they turn this off because they don't want to miss that important phone call. But when you're not waiting for something, just turn this back on and then your phone rings less often and is less annoying. And a lot of people really like that. Lastly, I hope nobody listening to me falls victim to a scam. I hope nobody here loses money. But if it happens, depending on how money was lost, some things have to happen very quickly to give us the best chance of recovering that money. So if money was lost via gift cards or cryptocurrency, which we've talked a lot about today, that should be reported to the FBI at their website. It's called ic3.gov. That stands for the Internet Crime Complaint Center. The FBI monitors that website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in certain situations, they can take action and they can freeze the money on a gift card, preventing the criminals from moving it around. And they can freeze certain crypto wallets, again, preventing the criminals from moving the money around. The idea is if we can freeze the money, it gives us a better chance of getting that back later for the criminals. But time is of the essence. Of course, if money was lost through the credit union or the bank, the financial institution, we want to contact them as quickly as possible to try to put a stop payment on that transaction. Just like my friend with the Illinois tolls, and she was able to get that money back. But again, time is of the essence. If money was mailed out, at most there's a 2-day window or so before that package gets delivered, where we need to contact whoever it was shipped out through to try to put a stop shipment on that package. And then my agency is listed at the bottom for a reason. We're not fast, but we're very thorough. So you can certainly follow up with us and file a complaint. We'll happily take a look at it and see if there's something that we can do to get the money back, or maybe we can't, and it might help us out just knowing numbers and what new scams are out there that work. And I can update a presentation like this. And of course, that might help out somebody else. We encourage victims to not be ashamed that they fell victim to a scam. Please come forward. Please report it to us. Give us a chance to look into it. And if you know of a friend or a family member that was victimized, of course, encourage them to do the same and report it to us and give us a chance. All right, I'm just going to throw this up on the screen. These are some other presentations that I offer, and I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'll pull up the chat window here, or feel free to chime in and let me know if there's anything else that you have a question about. And then, of course, for Rebecca, here's a list of other presentations. We've done common scams and fraud, and this was, or I'm sorry, we just did common scams and fraud, and we did identity theft a couple months ago. Anything else on there that people are interested in? I'm more than happy to do that one. A fairly popular one for us is safe online shopping. It also kind of has like that whole scam, theme to it, trying to avoid those fake websites.
Yeah, I think we spoke last time about setting up this safe online shopping for a little bit closer to the holidays when people are
Yeah, that sounds right. Yep.
in November. Okay, so we'll get that on the books. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask those, or if you want to put those in the chat. I will say about your friend's Illinois toll, we had just been traveling to Illinois. I think we were on the route to Illinois and I got the message about it. So I don't know if they even had some geo tracker on the area that says, okay, we're gonna hit you up because you're now going this way. I don't know, but it was quite accurate how they had that hit.
Yeah, and when you happen to be going through Illinois or something
Yeah,
like that, and then you get a message like that, it really hits home. Like, oh my
yeah,
goodness, this is real. And,
yeah.
that's where you really have to be diligent and wait a minute and just double check that this is real.
It looks like we have some interest in the home improvement contracts. So we can maybe try to put that one.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Yep.
Great.
So we, the Bureau of Consumer Protection, we regulate businesses in certain areas, and we have authority over. It's called ATCP 110. That's all the rules that contractors have to follow, and when contracts have to be in place between the business and the homeowner, and all the things that are in place to protect a homeowner. That's a big thing when all of a sudden you're going to have, $20,000, $30,000 worth of work done on your home and somebody wants a 50% down payment. And
Mhm.
what happens when things, you know, don't go well. And so, yeah, that's what that kind of whole presentation dives into.
That's great. Wonderful. I did have a question too, just to clarify. So the do not call list doesn't help with text message scamming.
Correct. It doesn't stop that. It has nothing to do with emails or text messages, just for phone calls. Personal line, so landlines and cell phone numbers can be on the list. Business phone numbers, unfortunately, cannot be on the list.
Okay. Is there anything that helps with to block those like text message spams? I mean, email will kind of has like spam and can kind of get it, but with text,
Yeah, not really, which is why I think the text messages have just become more popular.
yeah,
It's easier for the criminal to get the message through to us.
yeah, yeah, they're tricky. Right. Does anybody have any questions, any stories that they would like to share? Any instances of fraud that happened to them? I don't know if anybody, to unmute
All
yourself, there's
right.
a little
Well,
microphone down there. Okay, all right,
all right. Well, thank you, everybody. And
yeah, thank you.
if you do end up having any questions, just get them to Rebecca. She'll get them over to me, and we'll find you an answer.
Yep, I'll send out an email with a recording of the webinar. If you want to view it again or share it with anybody, I'll also include in that the do not call phone number and link, and as well as that kind of like a little snap of that screen with the FBI address and that. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll get those other two webinars on the books.
All right. Wonderful.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks. Have a great day. Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Bye.